Let me tell you, it's pretty odd when the right and the left meet, but when it happens, it's worth celebrating. From COPIRG, I'd like to introduce Lisa Ritland. How's that? See, I'm not bad with names. COPIRG stands for
Colorado Public Interest Research Group.
All right, you're environmental bad guys. You're environmental wackos. Would that be the best tagline for you?
Well, our best tagline would be that we're a statewide public interest organization. We work on a variety of consumer and public interest issues.
She's a wacko, I tell you, wacko. No, it's interesting. Sometimes the Independence Institute and groups like Common Cause and COPIRG, we usually disagree on a lot of stuff, finally find some areas out of principle, maybe from different directions, that we agree on. Corporate welfare and money going to corporations to encourage them to act in certain ways is one of those I think we might both agree on. You've got a special interest in the Farm Bill. Tell me a little bit about that.
Yeah, so the Farm Bill is a very hefty bill, which is basically all the federal policies around our food system wrapped up into one big piece of legislation that Congress needs to decide on every 5 years.
This becomes an entitlement program for farmers. And I've talked to Republicans who represent farm districts, and they hate corporate welfare, but the Farm Bill, that's a different thing to them. And it's not different, is it? It's still a handout for a subsidy for private business, right?
Right. So our main focus is the fact that there are, looking at all the agricultural subsidies in the Farm Bill, the fact that most of the subsidies are going to the farms who actually need it the least. In our research, we found that 74% of all the ag subsidies go to just 4% of farms. And so these are the largest, most profitable farms that definitely don't need the help of our...
Right. So 75% of the money, roughly, goes to 4% of the farms. Mm-hmm. We're talking Archers, Daniels, Midland, that kind of stuff. ADM, big, huge right.
agribusinesses.
And that's one of the reasons why they love things like renewable fuels, I forget what, the Flex Fuels program. But this goes to them to do what? Why are we paying these 4% of farms to do what exactly? Why are we subsidizing them? What's the idea? Well,
the original intent of these subsidies originated back during the Great Depression, when our country was facing tough times, and so the small farmers that were feeding Americans needed some sort of support so that they could continue doing what they're doing. However, through certain incentive programs and new ones have been created since the origination of the Farm Bill, it's been quite skewed. So it's becoming more and more skewed towards the largest agribusinesses, who obviously have even more money to keep things just the way they are.
So this is one of the things that I can't stand is when government chooses winners and losers in a marketplace. That should be up to consumers. And so in any way, we see it all sorts of areas. We see local governments giving tax breaks to certain retailers if they bring a Walmart into their neighborhood, and they'll give them all sorts of goodies, but they won't do that for mom and pop stores. And so in the farm case, it's pretty much the same thing, that ADM will get these huge subsidies. Is it to farm certain crops, or is it to not farm certain crops?
Well, it's skewed towards commodity crops. So commodity crops, like the main ones would be corn, wheat, and soy. They are the ones getting the most handouts. So when we're talking about programs like direct payments, that's a agricultural subsidy program that basically consists of the federal government cutting a check to that farm for growing a certain commodity crop like corn or wheat. And then there are also agricultural subsidy programs like the price loss coverage program, which the House created, which basically locks in commodity prices for those crops. In fact, it guarantees 85% of the price, or of the revenue that the farm was making for the previous years. So it locks in those high prices, and whenever the marketplace fluctuates, it means that taxpayers have to make up the difference.
Isn't the idea, though, that we get cheaper food? The idea is that we give the money to these farmers so that they continue to produce this stuff, so therefore they don't have to charge us that amount of money. Isn't that why we pay them to make more corn than we need?
That was the original idea behind the Farm Bill. However, now that it's encouraging the overproduction of certain crops like corn and soy, it's now becoming so, corn and soy, crops like that are used for things like animal feed or producing fuel now that we know how to do that. But since there's even more overproduction now, we've encouraged that through these subsidy programs. We have had to think of more things to do with this surplus. And so we've created things like high fructose corn syrup and other
That's good.
junk food ingredients.
That's good. This is one thing government does that I might support, because Twinkies are back and smaller. But let me ask you about the process. Right now, it's kind of interesting because there's a fight between the White House and Republicans in the House and Democrats in the Senate. It seems like there's a stall in this, and that they haven't agreed whether or not they're going to continue the same subsidy. So is there a possibility these subsidies could go? Is this a time now to talk about it?
Yes, this is a time now to talk about it, if there's any time. So right now, Congress is deciding what their next step will be, but we do know that the Farm Bill will expire at the end of September. So there needs to be some sort of decision before then.
Or just let it expire. Would that be all right with COPIRG?
Well, I honestly don't think that will be likely.
I didn't ask if it would be likely, but it would be okay. Wouldn't it be great if we got rid of them altogether, even for the small farmers?
Well, everyone's unsure what that will do, mainly because no one's looked into it that much, since it's a very unlikely scenario. The more likely scenario is that they choose to extend the current Farm Bill for one more year just to buy them time to figure things out, or they'll pass some sort of reform. And I think a lot of Congress members do want to come to some sort of decision by the end of September, but the clock is ticking. So we have a real opportunity now, since Senator Bennett, who sits on the Agriculture Committee, will probably play some sort of key role, especially if the Farm Bill does go to a conference. Senator Bennett was already named to be one of the conferees on that committee.
This is going to put him in a terrible spot, because you've got people like you on the left saying, change this bill, stop doling out the money to companies. And then he's got people on my side saying the same thing, but he represents so many people and so many interests that take care of farmers. What are the chances that Mr. Bennett is going to actually become a champion for cutting back these programs?
Well, he's already done a lot. So he's sitting on the Ag Committee. They've already cut out the long poster child of wasteful ag programs, and that would be direct payments. So that one is already out of there, which is great.
Direct payments?
Direct payments is the one where farms basically get a direct check from the government for growing a certain commodity crop like corn or soy.
They don't have to show how much they've grown, they just get a check at the beginning of the year?
Well, they show how many acres they have, and then based on that, then they get a check from the government. So we've already made some progress, and there, on the Senate side, there are a few reasonable caps and limits to make sure that huge, already profitable farms aren't getting massive checks from the government. But there's still a lot more to be done, and the real hope is that unlikely bedfellows are coming together on this. Like you said, the right and the left are really agreeing on this. I'm sitting here talking to you. We actually have
worse things could happen.
We actually have 50 farmers across the state who have already raised their voices on the issue because they're really upset about the current system. So
because the money's not going to them, but if the money was going to them, they'd be very happy.
They actually are, most of them that we talked to said, hey, I'm doing this without government handouts now. I don't need it in the future, but gosh, I can't believe that my taxes are going towards my competition.
It seems a little bit like the military-industrial complex, and what big companies will do is make sure that they have whatever new weapon system is built, one part in every state, so that every senator has something at stake to keep those programs going. So in the same way, ADM and other big farmers, they've got interests all across the country to leverage that. What do you think the likelihood of Senator Bennett doing the right thing on this is?
Well, very likely, We're very optimistic. Again, it all comes down to the fact that unlikely bedfellows are coming together. We have a strong coalition of small farmers across the state in every district that has farms. And then, we could be doing more, though. And so that's, we'll be talking to our members.
Let me ask you the ideological question. Because Michael Bennett listens to me all the time, by the way. Let me ask you the more ideological question. We don't like subsidies, although lots of people in business love it. I mean, because business loves doing business with government. They love the protection. They love the subsidies. Mm-hmm. We don't want subsidies to go to anyone. Now, COPIRG is an environmental group. Do you feel the same way across the board for all subsidies? For instance, there's a lot of subsidies that go to prop up wind power and solar power. I don't want to see subsidies going to Enron or Halliburton in the same way I don't want it to go to Solyndra or Abound or Vestas or the others. Is COPIRG ready to do the same thing and say, listen, subsidies, choosing winners and losers in a private marketplace are wrong. Let's do the same thing on this bill, agriculture, as we do throughout everything else, including energy?
We actually haven't been working on subsidies and energy at all.
I will invite you. Can we work together on that? You and me defunding wind farm subsidies. Can you be on board? Nice silence. Tell me about the paper and where, if people want to find out, where do they go?
Our website, so COPIRG.org. That's COPIRG.org.
And if you really want the legislators, who do they need to contact besides Bennett?
They need to call their own Congress member. Everyone's got to have a final vote on this.
Point taken. Thank you. Thank you. Listen for me on KHOW Radio. Tell a friend about the Independence Institute, and we'll see you next week.